And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessper Maquindang. And if you're looking to build a stronger team and a more effective company culture, you're in the right place. My guests share tips, strategies, and insights in each episode to help you and your people thrive. And today we have a very special guest. And as we welcome our guest, let's learn more about Dr. Lori McDowell. Dr. Lori McDowell is a best selling author, coach, and speaker known for her heart led spiritual approach to helping redefine success and fulfillment. Through her award winning book, The Reinvention Mindset, coaching, retreats, and transformative workshops, Dr. Lori guides people to overcome limiting beliefs and create the life they desire. Dr. Lori believes that while we can't control what happens to us, we completely control what we do with it, and that every negative event is a gift. Facing life this way allows one to claim their power, live their purpose, and experience a life full of joy and adventure. Let's welcome Dr. Lori McDowell. Dr. Lori, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Jessper. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really looking forward to today's conversation, especially when it comes to rewriting the rules, taking risk, claiming your power. I'd like to know more about the research in the field. Dr. Lori, can you share some insights?
Sure. Yeah. It's really interesting. In corporate America, they found that, in a 2022 survey, 60% of people felt like they were not empowered at work, that they were just basically going through the motions and not connected, which is a staggering number. That's like more than half people at their job feel like they're not connected. And I think part of this is because they really follow the rules, they do what they're supposed to do, and they never stop and think about what is it about them, like what's their purpose, what makes them excited. And when you work from that perspective, so much more is available. Some other statistics: 3 in 4 employees consider their job to be a source of dissatisfaction in their life at some time. I mean, that's a lot. And then 50% of workers feel stressed on a daily basis. 41% are worried and 18% are angry. So clearly we don't have a happy workforce. And I think as I said, part of it is because we're treating our workforce like we're not treating them as individuals. We're doing a lot of treating everybody the same and trying to tell the people that work for us at our companies, you have to fit into the mold. And when you try to fit into a mold that's not your mold, it's going to result in stress and unhappiness and a feeling of disconnection.
That's very interesting. This idea of individualism and this idea of being fitting into the mold. I'm just curious, where do you see just society and how it treats employees today? Do you see it still promoting that mold or trying to promote individualism?
I think in a lot, well, I think it is changing to some degree, and it's because it has to. A lot of big companies still feel like the employees should, they hire you and the employee is supposed to transform to be you. Now, there are some companies that have found that when they empower their employees and they allow their employees to use their inherent strengths, they actually get a lot more. When they have a diverse workforce and different employees that have different strengths and they allow them to do it, it's a lot more beneficial. Yet I still think a lot of companies are still not quite there yet. They're still kind of going for the old, we have a job description and you're going to fill that job description. And if it's outside that job description, you're not going to do it. And that really doesn't make for happy, fulfilled employees.
Oh, I can see that. Because when employees really get the opportunity to really express their own creativity and innovation, that leads to a lot more productivity. On the other hand, if people are expected to follow, this specific recipe, especially when it relates to their career, that can lead to stagnation and, that purpose and drive. They could potentially lose that. But on the other hand, when employees are really given that power to really claim their power, that's where they'll see just great things happen in their work they do. And another something I saw within the research is that uh, people who take career risk do report higher satisfaction with their career progression. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. That makes total sense to me because I think when it it comes from the fact that if you're willing to take a career risk, you're comfortable with who you are. You're comfortable that you might fail. And when you're in that position, you do get a lot, you get a lot more success. If you're not afraid of failing, you can be so much more open in what you do. You can be so much more creative and you can really get much better results. So if you're in that mindset of taking a risk, then you're going to be willing to go out there and do something because you know if it doesn't work, you'll be okay. You can figure it out. You can get a learning from it. And and that's the way we grow. So I think companies that are willing to let employees take risk and support them if it doesn't work out are going to be much better off. And I think employees who are willing to take a risk will find that they really get a lot more satisfaction from their jobs because they're not just doing the same old thing. They're actually using their creativity, they're using their innate skills and what's personal to them. And they're actually, they're, I think the word, I heard the word somewhere, what is it? What was it? It was entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, but entrepreneur, where basically you're working for a corporation, but you have that entrepreneurial spirit. So you're allowed to be creative and do things a little bit differently and test things out. And I think that really does benefit both the employees and the company.
That's an excellent point. And there was something I also found in the research, and from Deloitte, they discovered that when organizations do empower people to take risk and lead authentically, they see a 30% boost in innovation. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. I had not seen that statistic, but that makes complete sense because, like I said, when people are, I know in my career, when I had bosses that let me do the things that excited me in addition to my job, I did my job much better. And I did things for the company that, weren't expected. Whereas when I had a boss that said, no, you will stick to the letter of your job and do nothing else, not only was I not happy, but I had less of an incentive to really even do that job as well. I was trying to fit into that. So you're not, when a happy employee, a satisfied employee is going to give so much more to the company. So you get the creativity of being able to be yourself and you get an employee who loves what they're doing. And when you love what you're doing, you're going to do it better.
Happy employee, more productivity.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an excellent insight. And let's take a deeper dive into this topic of really rewriting the rules and claiming your power. So, Dr. Lori, I'd like to learn the inspiration behind what led you to really jump into this field.
Yeah, it actually comes from my experience in work. I had a 35-year career working as a chemical engineer. And throughout that career, there were times when I loved my job and there were times when I hated my job. And often the job, it was the same job. And the only difference was who the boss was, who the manager was. I mean, I had jobs that were great and I thought I would do it forever. And then, a boss retired, a new one came in and suddenly I was dreading to go to work. And one day I was actually fired from that job in a rather devastating manner. I was fired after I drove 4 hours to a meeting. And when I got there, they told me, you're fired, turn around and go home. And I was like, what? Why would you do that? Why didn't you just tell me this morning? But on that way home, I just had this clarity that I was happy that I was when I realized I didn't have to go to work tomorrow, I was just so happy and so light because I felt like the job I was in at that time and I was being forced to do things that were not really what I loved. And I was being micromanaged and I really wasn't happy. So I decided instead of getting another job, I wanted to explore this. And that's when I really wrote the book and started looking at what makes some people able to just really thrive when other people don't. And a lot of it was being willing to rewrite the rules and not necessarily follow all the rules as they're written, because the rules are written, most of our rules are written, probably 50, 100 years ago. And they were written for the average person. They weren't written for anyone in particular. So if you try to follow the rules and the rules don't fit you, you're going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time. You're just going to never really feel comfortable. Whereas if you can write your own rules, what's really important, have a clear goal. If we have a clear goal, what the outcome is, how you get there shouldn't matter. It's that you get there. And when you allow that empowerment and that freedom to figure out what makes the most sense, I think employees feel more powerful. They feel like they've contributed more. Companies get a better benefit. And it's really about allowing people to write the rules that make sense for them within a certain guideline. Clearly, you have to be going for that same purpose.
That's right. And that segues to the next part of the conversation is, I know that you've mentioned it throughout, but I'd like to take a deeper dive into this idea of writing your rules and rewriting the rules, and why should more people pay attention to this concept?
Yeah, I think what happens, from my studies as a coach, we have, we have our conscious mind and we have our unconscious mind. And our conscious mind is our goal setter. So the conscious mind says, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Yet your unconscious mind is really the goal getter. It's where, everything sits, that 90% of what happens in your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind looks at your values, the things that are innate to you, your strengths, your purpose, your why, those things that are really important to you. And if your goals don't match those values and those things that are important to you, then your conscious mind and your unconscious mind they're gonna fight, and you're not going to achieve those goals. But when you align them so that you're setting your goals and you're matching them with your values, which is setting the rules that go with your values, then they're going to be in flow together, and they're both going to be moving the same way. So you get better results, things happen easier, and you don't have this internal struggle over, this is what I feel like I'm being told to do or I have to do, but this is what my heart is telling me to do. And it's kind of a battle between the conscious and the subconscious that often makes us feel burnt out or overwhelmed or just not able to do our job well. And when you get the two of them aligned, everything seems easier. You see possibilities you didn't see before. You have more creativity, and you can really get much better results.
This vision of alignment and just fulfillment, it really sparks energy within people. And as you said, when people are happy, they're just more productive, they're more creative, they're more innovative. And I'd like to know more about your journey. And I was curious to know, Dr. Lori, what was the biggest risk you've taken in your career, and how has it shaped you?
Well, I guess the biggest risk I took was when I decided I wasn't going to get another job. I was just going to start my own company, because at the time I had no idea what I was going to do. I just said, I'm going to figure something out. So that was clearly the biggest risk, is starting my own business. But in my career as an employee, I think the biggest risk was when I decided I wanted to move into I worked in R&D for a long time. I had a PhD, and I decided I wanted to move into a sales role. And I actually not only moved into a new role, but actually moved across the country. I moved from the East Coast down to Texas, a different part of the country. And it really was because I felt like that was what I enjoyed. So even though I had a PhD in chemical engineering and I was working in research and development, what I really enjoyed was the interaction with the customer. And, people were like, well, why is a PhD going into sales or everything? But I followed my heart, and I said, this is what I want to do. And I ended up staying in sales for the next 20 years. So it really worked out.
Wow. How was that journey in sales, that new chapter?
I loved it. I clearly, it's good and bad, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed having that direct result with the customer and having that background in research, and then seeing, this is the research, and then this is what happens when we actually sell our products and we have the customer using it. I really like seeing the real world fulfillment. So I enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoyed the social aspect and the connection and the building relationships. I think that was one of my strengths, in building that relationship.
And then after hearing your story, this idea of taking risk, for many people, risk can be scary. So I'd like to learn from your perspective, how can people build the courage to take bold steps, even when the consequences are uncertain?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is, we always look at what's the worst thing that could happen? And the one thing we never really look at is what's the best thing that could happen. And when you look at what's the best thing that could happen, you see, like, you can see the upside, you see all those possibilities, and you realize, like, if you don't take this risk, you're limiting yourself to all those possibilities. And the other big thing about risk, we don't want to take risks because we have fears, is really facing your fears and realizing that if your worst fear happens, you'll be okay. Like, I have an exercise where I take people through fears, and we look at their fears and we rank them, like, first off, the probability of them happening. And for most people, they have one or two of them that are above 50%. Most of them are like 10% or less. So we're fearing these things that are probably never going to happen. And then if you look at the fear and you say, okay, what happens if it comes true? I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of getting fired. I'm afraid of something, succeeding, whatever that fear is. And you realize, well, I could deal with that. That's not so bad. I can have a plan for it. I can get over it. I can learn from it. So when you see, like, all these failures or all these things that could go wrong as something you could learn from, something that you can handle, then they're not so scary anymore. And you're able to actually do them, because it's like, okay, well, I know that if, there's so much possible if it goes well, and if it doesn't, I can deal with it. It's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. But I think so many people have this idea that if they fail, or if they take a risk and it doesn't work out, that it's the end. They can't do anything else, that they're stuck. And that's just not true.
That's right. And the first part that you mentioned, people always think of worst case scenarios. I was recently reading a business book, and when people make decisions, we're always asking, what if it doesn't, what if this doesn't go well? What if that doesn't go well? And based on the insight I read from that book, flip the question and say, well, what if that does go well? What if this does go well? It really gives you the insight to understanding the opportunities that are ahead of us. So, and the second part, that fear of failure, for me, I see failure, mistakes as opportunities to learn, because it will give us more insights on how we can move forward. So failure is not the end of the world if people use it as really another perspective to what they can do better in the future. That really gives them more to work with to really make things better.
Right. Yes. Someone said, a quote I heard, I don't know who said it, but it's very smart, is, the only failure is the failure to learn. So any other failure, it's not really a failure. It's just a lesson. It's okay. This didn't work out this time. What would I do different? And yeah, often when you look at, like, what's the upside, what's the best that could happen versus what's the worst, the best is so much better than the worst is bad. And yet we limit ourselves because we're always looking at the negative and never thinking about all the things that are possible.
Yes, focusing on the possible, that really gives us that insight to really see what could be ahead of us. So that's a great way to put it. And Dr. Lori, I'd like to know, what advice would you give to someone who is ready to take a risk, but they're not sure where to start?
I would advise them to look at yourself and to maybe, do an exercise on seeing what your values are, what the things are that you're really excited about, whether, you could find exercises online. You can go with a coach to do them. But just try to understand what it is that's important to you, what your values are, what are the things that really you're passionate about. And if the risk aligns with that, then go for it, because it's giving you that opportunity to live your purpose. And when you're living your purpose, when you're living those things that are important to you, you're just going to be so much happier, and things are going to be so much easier, and you're going to see, opportunities and creativity you didn't see before, because your whole body, mind, spirit is all aligned and going for that same thing.
That's right. And then back to the workplace, how can organizations better support people to really take bold steps?
I think one of the things organizations need to make clear to people is that it's not necessarily a one-way revolving, that taking a bold step is not a one-way where you do it, and if something works, you go from being promoted to being fired. they need to make it clear that there are, that you can try this and that you can reach for this, and we expect you to succeed, and you can succeed. And if it doesn't work out, there's other routes. You can go back to this. You can try something else. I think a lot of time people are afraid to take a risk because they don't know what's on the other side, and they're all worried about the fear. So if organizations make it clear and say, we want you to take a risk, we want you to be bold, we want you to make the rules to get the biggest upside, and we will support you in that, whether, no matter what happens, that will make it a lot easier for employees to do it, knowing that, the company's got your back, and we're going to we're going to help you through this, and we expect you to succeed. And if you decide, you take a risk and you did something and you decide you hated it and you want to go back to a different role or try something else, we're going to support you in that too.
Excellent. And from a more personal perspective, how can we as individuals help others feel safe in taking risk?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think as individuals, part of it is really just supporting people who they are, allowing people to be themselves, whether they're, whoever they are they're the perfect you. Nobody can be a better Jessper than you. Nobody can be a better Lori than me. We are the perfect people at ourselves. So supporting everyone to be themselves and not trying to force them to fit into a mold or break a mold is really a way as individuals to help all the people around you. So cheer them on, celebrate wins together. I think the more we celebrate, the more good things happen. So companies should celebrate wins, teams should celebrate, even individuals, if you had a great day or something good happened, do something to celebrate with your coworkers, with your family. The more you celebrate, the more positivity you bring in and the more wins you get. So
that's actually a great insight, celebrating wins, because so many people are focused on what didn't go well, and they tend to dwell in it, that negative mindset. And of course, that self-fulfilling prophecy, when you focus on the negative, you're just bringing more negative. But on the other hand, when you are celebrating wins, whether even the small wins, when you're focused on the positive, that really brings up the energy and gets people excited and motivated to really keep moving forward.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you said the small wins, because you can find a win anywhere. I try to celebrate my wins every day, and, someday the win is, I made it till bedtime, and that's a win because it didn't have to happen that way, and sometimes it's a huge win, but you can always find something to celebrate. And I think the more you celebrate, it builds teamwork, it builds positivity, it makes you feel good, and it's good for a company. So.
Excellent. And Dr. Lori, another question about your journey. What advice would you give to your younger self about taking risks and claiming your power?
Yeah, I think I would tell my younger self to really be true to you. And if the role, if the job, if you're in a position where you find yourself, you have to change who you are to feel like you're doing it, don't. You're better off in another role. I mean, if you end up having to change jobs, that's okay. Or if you end up trying, but really be true to yourself and take those risks. I think we do that. We try, especially women, probably more than men, but we feel like if we're not perfect at something, we don't want to do it. Nobody has all the qualifications or all the things. If it's something you love and it's something you believe you can do, go for it. And learn how to do it on the way. Ask for help. Figure it out. You don't have to do it all alone. But if it's exciting to you, and that's what I would tell myself, because I know there were times where I didn't take the risk because I figured, I'm not good enough, or they're not looking for me. And there were times where I wanted to speak out or I wanted to do something different, and I didn't, because I figured that's I tried to fit in. And I wish I had not done those things, because I think if I had not done those things, my career would have been even better. Because I think when you're true to yourself and you're willing to, rewrite the rules and claim that power, you do become unstoppable.
And this idea of fulfillment, purpose, loving what we do and doing what we love. I know you have a special event coming up. Could you tell us more about that?
I do. I have a 3-day summit coming up this week, starting Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Jesper's actually one of the speakers, and it's called "You Make a Good Living. Imagine Creating an Extraordinary Life." And it's really it's all the speakers are focused on tools to help you create a life of fulfillment, of joy, of love, of purpose. And some of them are very practical tools, like maybe something about, they might be tools on scheduling or sales or marketing. And some of them are more heart-centered tools. But all the speakers, their goal is to provide ways that you can create an extraordinary life. Because I believe when everyone is living a life they love, that'll just, not only will it change the workforce, will it change companies, but it'll change the world. Because if you're really happy and you're really grateful for what you're doing, you can't be angry, you can't be fighting, you can't be miserable, you can't be putting people down. So if you're in that space, and the more people are in that space, just the better place the world will be.
The better place the world will be. And for everyone out there, I will post the registration details in the comments, so I'll have that up there. And Dr. Lori, as we wrap up, what is the best way for people to reach you should they want to learn more about the work you do?
Okay, sure. The best way is probably, I have a link that's yourextraordinarylife.net. And on that link, it basically has all my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my email, my phone number, a couple programs, lead magnets. So that has everything. So if you just go to yourextraordinarylife.net, that's the perfect way to reach me. You could book a call from there. You could email me. You could, connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, or download one of the free gifts I offer.
Excellent. And Dr. Lori, before we go, what is your final piece of wisdom for our viewers?
I think my final piece of wisdom is to realize that, we all have everything we need inside of us, or we know how to find it. So when you're coming from that place where you believe that, then it's easy to take a risk, because you can do it, and if you need help, you know where to find it. And just think of it that way. You are the perfect you, we're all the perfect us, and we have everything we need. So just from that perspective, you can go for what you want.
Thank you, Dr. Lori. And I didn't get to mention it earlier, but I wanted to mention that I do have a copy of your book, and thank you for sharing it with me. It is on my reading list, so I'm looking forward to learning more.
I'd love to hear what you think. So I'm excited about it. I've had very good feedback on it, and I still read it. I have it too, and I still read it on a regular basis. So
I'm looking forward to this read. And I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. Please feel free to share this conversation with any other leaders who could benefit from these insights. Again, Dr. Lori, thank you for joining me. Really enjoyed today's conversation. And for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. I will see you in the next episode.
Thank you.